First off, thanks for being here. I want to thank Chairwoman Warren for doing this. I'm a business guy, so you have to invest to get what you want done, but you sure as heck don't want to waste any money. And the easiest way to spend money on something is through savings. It's a lot easier than have to come up with new capital or borrow more money, whatever you're doing. So I want to thank Chairwoman Warren for doing this, and we've talked about doing another hearing in, I think, September. So anybody that has any, I think we want to hear from other members if they have anything they want to talk about, but there has to be a hell of a lot of savings here, right? The Department of Defense is the nation's largest employer. Over 2 million people serve in our military in either an active or reserve capacity. We've got another 824,000 people who work as DoD civilian employees. An additional 800,000 people support the DoD through contract mechanism. It's a lot of people. Between military personnel, civilian employees, contracted labor, nearly 50% of the total defense budget is spent on the DoD workforce, which in fiscal 23 equates to more than $400 billion. They're Americans, or it's not just money numbers, they're serving our country. And I think every one of them probably feels like they have a good, important mission to get done. Each one of them is the reason why the work of this subcommittee is so important. There's been plenty of talk in Washington that have excused the wasted and inefficiencies at the Department of Defense, saying, oh gosh, it's a big place. I don't know if you can really do this there. I think most of us think that's pretty ridiculous. We all have to do it at our homes. We have to do it in our businesses. Our families are doing it every day, especially at a time where we're seeing ridiculous inflation. So I think that we can figure this out, and there are ways to save a lot of money. I used to be in business. At one time, I ran the 7th biggest U.S. employer. We had to do it every day. We had to keep coming up with efficiencies. None of our customers says, gosh, I want to give you more money, and none of our shareholders said, we'd like you to give us less of a return. So we had to constantly come up with this. Matter of fact, in some of the manufacturing companies I had, by contract, by written contract, every year I had to cut 2% of my price, my costs, by contract. So every year I was required to get 2% productivity gains or make less money. And nobody wanted to get paid less, nobody wanted to make less, so you just had to do it. So this is all, it's all doable. I also want to thank you guys for what you do. I've only been up here 4.5 years, but I think every one of your agencies actually is a real help to what we do in our jobs. The reports you put out, the information you put out is actually very helpful to me. I think the DoD is in desperate need of real, thorough, and consistent audits. I can't imagine not doing an audit, a thorough audit. And also, in the private sector, when you have an audit and there's anything in the audit that says we need to fix it, you have to fix it. You have to fix it. Your shareholders are going to hold you accountable, and you're not going to keep your job if you don't go through that audit and try to eliminate as many, if not all, of the problems before the next audit, not in 5 years. The next audit, you had to try to get anything that was in there, and you had to get a clean audit, or clearly, if you're the CEO, you would not have a job. I think we got to make sure that this is a lot of money. We want to have a lethal military. We want to support our military, but it's got to be done where we don't waste any dollars. This is not about cutting spending. It's about spending money efficiently and making sure that whatever we spend, it means we're going to take care of our service members, and we're going to have the most lethal force possible, so hopefully nobody ever wants to do anything against us. I don't think it's a hard concept. I think we all do it every day in our life. The more efficiencies we can find, either we can save money for the taxpayers of this country, or we can make bigger investments to make sure we have a better military. We can't, I don't think any of us want to slow down our investments in defense, but also understand that we shouldn't be doing things that we don't get a return on, and we ought to be hell-bent on getting that done. We also have to understand that it's getting harder and harder to recruit in the military. So everybody there is more and more important. We're spending, if you look at it, just like in companies, we're spending more dollars training people now than at any time. When my dad went in, he's an airborne. They just sent him to the front lines. I don't know how much training he got. I got a little bit, and then swabbed the decks and cleaned the latrines a lot. Today, I think they're getting a lot more training than when I got when I was in. In a perfect world, our service members would be used exclusively for military-specific tasks, but some jobs need to be done, and a uniformed service member is the only person who's available to do it. But I agree with Chairwoman Warren, we use a lot of civilian it just can't cost as much money. I mean, you come up here and you see how many companies have just been created by provide services to, sometimes it's our federal government, sometimes it's just our military, and the margins on this stuff. I mean, we didn't make margins in the business I was in that were like this. We've got to make it easier for our service members abroad to find fulfilling work for their supporting spouses. I was just traveling, and we had one individual was telling me that she had a very well-trained husband and couldn't get a job where they were. I mean, there's some crazy rule that was preventing it. When I was governor of Florida, we tried to, and I'm sure Senator Kane did the same thing, you're trying to make your state the most military-friendly state, and so you figure out how do you waive everything you can so all the spouses can get a job, because it has a big impact on these, and they want to serve there, but also their livelihood every day. And we can't pay exorbitant salaries for our military, so a lot of their spouses have to make a decent income to survive. I recently heard, so this was just about the spouse, and I guess there's, with some of the individuals overseas, they apply through USA Jobs, but it's difficult that they can't get jobs overseas to do telework in the United States. I mean, this stuff, some of the stuff just doesn't make any sense. We've got to make this all easier. I think we've got to do a review of all of our laws governing federal civil service. We want to make sure that it works like the private sector. You want to be able to hire people when you want to hire them as quickly as you can, but you want to be able to hold people accountable, because if you can't hold people accountable, then unfortunately you end up with the bad actors, not with the best employees, and no one wins in that situation. I think both Republicans and Democrats have proposed things just even since I've been up here to try to make that better, but often there's some special interests that try to prevent that. So hopefully we can go through all these things, and I think this is going to be a good hearing, but I think there's more to be done to try to find efficiencies and force these efficiencies so we can make sure we may make good investments. Thanks for being here. Thanks for what you do, because your reports are really good.
Good. Thank you very much.